Hello student, thank you for registering your interest to complete the Graduate Practitioner Competencies with the Early Years team here at Warwick University. They are run under the framework on the Early Childhood Studies Degree Network. There are 9 competencies which you will know off by heart quite soon, which are outlined in a couple of the appendices that I'm going to go through. All 9 competencies have to be completed by you by the end of your degree with us, so that when you graduate with your BA Honours in Early Childhood, you also get awarded an extra certificate. That Level 6 certificate allows you to work with children 0 to 7 because it also embeds the fitness to practice required by the Department for Education. So some of you have already got your Level 3, but for those of you that want it updated or have decided that this is a fresh certificate that you'd like to gain, you're more than able to complete the competencies. They are designed and written around what every early childhood studies student does within the UK. So they are a generic competency and they are very easy, dare I say, or very well written to your actual practitioner status. There is nothing in the competencies that should concern you or worry you or something that you have never heard of before. Some of your evidence, your knowledge evidence, will come from taking the modules that we deliver, and you will upload some of those evidence assessments onto your Warwick ePortfolio site. But alongside that knowledge, that theory, that module that you've taken, everything else comes from your practice with children. So it will either come from your current practice where you work, whatever age group that is, or it will have to come from the other age ranges that need to be covered, 0 to 2 and 3 to 5. And that is where you have to gain perhaps another placement in another institution or another setting that you have set up yourself. While you are at that placement, you will have a practice educator or mentor who is employed at that setting to support you in signing off the competencies. But again, that is entirely up to you to locate and source that person. It is very much a competency evidence folder that the student is at the heart of. The mentor at the workplace, or the practice educator, sorry, they will not write something up for you spontaneously. They are not observing you unless you've actually asked them to. And the HEI tutor who also signs off your work, they do visit you at your placement, but only at your request, at a date and a time that you've set up to observe you doing something specifically that you know you've got to gain your competency in. Again, that observation in practice is not led by the HEI tutor or by the practice educator. It is solely your responsibility. There's going to be lots of opportunities to talk through all of this with you. You've got a personal tutor and you've got myself, Maggie Crowley, to answer any of your queries about the competencies and how to gather your evidence. So I hope that this collaborative working partnership proves useful for you, and I hope ultimately you enjoy it, because you will be given the opportunity to develop your professional practice across wider age ranges than what might have been offered to you previously. And it also means that at level 6, when you graduate with us, you are part of that upskilled workforce working with children 0 to 8. So without further ado, I'll start to go through the appendices verbally to help you. So Appendix 1 in your document is the authorised signature sheet. So that is one thing that is very important that you do in placement. You've got to make sure that you have got this uploaded onto your Warwick ePortfolio so that we can check the signatures that have been signed off while you are at placement. Appendix 2 is the student profile. And this is an outline, Appendix 2, of what will roughly happen with your Year 1, Year 2, Year 3 and Year 4 focus. You will see that you will have to have a first visit and a final visit by the HEI, so the tutor that's been allocated to you from our early years team. But then in between, it is up to you to carry out a trial study at that placement and to book in observations and activities for your mentor or your practice educator to sign off. So it's quite a lengthy document, but it will become second nature to you. Before too long, you'll understand the pattern of the type of evidence you have to gather over the years that you are going to be studying with us. So Appendix 3 is the HEI tutor visit outline. So as I explained, you will be allocated a tutor, either myself, Karen, Rachel or Charlotte, and they will visit the placement that you are at with the age group that you are covering, and we'll do what's called an environmental walkabout with the practice educator, so all three of us, but you're leading it. It will cover approximately 2 hours, and in those 2 hours there are some specific outline that you've got to cover that's on the document. I won't go through all of them here because it will differ for each of you depending on where you work and what type of competencies you've already gathered. Appendix 4, HEI First Visit Record Sheet. It's a copy of what myself and the practice educator will be completing. So we'll be walking alongside you and gathering evidence to sign off at the end of the visit. This form will then be uploaded onto your Warwick e-portfolio as evidence, and you will complete a sheet, a competency sheet, to say that you've met them. Appendix 5 is for those of you that need more than one visit. So you've had your first visit, you're going to have a final visit, but maybe halfway through you still need some further support, and it's what's called an intermediate visit, where an observation in practice and a copy of an activity plan will be supplied 24 hours before the date of the visit for us to come out and observe and give you feedback on. Appendix 6 is the final visit report. So when you're coming to the end of your placement for that particular age range, you will invite myself or another tutor again back to your placement to complete a final visit report to just make sure that we've gathered all of the competencies that you have covered during your time at that placement. Appendix 7 is a very important document. It's the observation in practice. So I want you to peruse all of these documents and get a feel for what we will be looking for and what type of evidence will be signed off. Appendix 8 is a very good document for you to start completing as soon as you can. It is a work placement report. It is something that you complete for evidence and you get signed off by your mentor as you progress. It is quite a lengthy document. It goes from page 26 to 30. But it is an aid memoir, so it's something that I would personally print off if I was you and keep on your person while you were working at the placement, to just glance down and just see how well you are actually doing in gaining your competencies. Now, unfortunately, there may be a time or there may be a student that doesn't act professionally within their placement context. So there is a Appendix 9, a student concern form that will be completed. You could start it off if you've got a concern, or the practice educator or your HEI tutor. So there might be different people that are just a little bit worried that you're not uploading your work perhaps back at the Warwick e-portfolio, or there was an incident at the setting that wasn't professionally adhered to. There could be a number of reasons why there might be a concern, but this is a supportive process. There will be 2 stages if there is a concern raised, and the first stage will be a talk between yourself and the setting to just see what type of actions we can put into place to help you, because we want you to pass, we don't want fails. However, if a continuing problem is not actioned and you, the student, are failing to make any improvements, and the practice mentor or practice educator doesn't feel that they can sign you off, then it is possible at the second stage that you may receive a fail and not continue with your graduate practitioner competencies. You'll still get your BA Honours early childhood degree, but not the competencies certificate. So there are a couple of ways that you can gather your evidence. I've just gone through the observation in practice, uploading activity plans. You can also carry out what's called a professional discussion, and the outline for those are in Appendix 10. So before you do a professional discussion, you've got to plan to do it. In other words, you've got to book your practice educator in at a reasonable time, either first thing in the morning or perhaps when the children have gone home, that you can hold this professional discussion and, if agreed, record it. You decide on the competency assessment criteria, so it's not just a general chat. You will be specifically talking to your practice educator about a particular area that you think you've met and you would like to discuss professionally with them. And then you go on to complete the professional discussion form. So plan it first and then record it, or write down the key points if you haven't recorded it. And that is Appendix 10. So Appendix 11 is your insurance letter. Now, this is extremely important because you have to get this completed before you start any placement hours. And on page 34 and 35, it is quite prescriptive that you have got to sit with the placement that you've chosen, complete it, get it signed off by your practice educator and the setting, and return it to me, maggie.crowley@warwick.ac.uk. Alongside that, you've also got to make sure that your permission letter in Appendix 11 is signed off by yourself and the setting to make sure that you're following their confidentiality policy, and that you are also adhering to any ethical guidelines in gathering the evidence. So, for example, no photos or names of children. Appendix 13 is your Student Competency Evidence Report, and this sits on your Warwick e-portfolio, and it is a report that you are completely responsible for filling in, but you are also responsible for getting your practice educator or your mentor to comment against. So, for example, Competency 1.1 is demonstrate how you listen to and work in collaboration with young children individually and in groups. So, for example, that might be an activity plan that you have carried out with the age range, for example, 3 to 5. So you will put that in that first column. Activity plan, the date of the activity plan. You might start numbering your evidence so that when you upload it onto your Warwick e-portfolio, we've got a log of exactly what number of evidence pertains to which competencies. But also, have you got any comments from the settings mentor or practice educator that you can put in? That's very important because over the space of time of your studying with us and on the competencies, you will be working towards a final year, BA top-up year. And in that final year, you will do what's called a viva. And that's when you will present your competencies portfolio to a panel to pass. So we want you to gather that professional discussion, that reflective log all the way through. So please don't submit evidence that doesn't have comments about your practice in that final comment. So that starts on page 37 and goes right through to page 9 competencies. So It's not a great deal of work over the length of time that you are with us, so don't get put off by the amount of competencies or the wording. It will all become much clearer once you start to immerse yourself in them. So I would highly recommend that you read them again and again, maybe pull off a copy and annotate them. You might already know what you can do already and what you can sign against, or you might already have an idea of how to gain evidence. So, for example, competency 9 is professional development, and 9.2 is evidence skills in enabling the voice of young children to be heard. So, try and think outside the box from a professional point of view. How do you, as a graduate practitioner, enable the child's voice to be heard within your practice? Again, all of you will have different ideas. I wouldn't expect every portfolio to be the exact same, and not every student will do the exact same hours or have to do the same age ranges. Each of you is completely individual and will be assessed individually. So I'd like to thank you for taking your time to listen to this recording. I hope it's given you an oversight of the competencies and the type of documents that you will need to complete over the 3 years up to your 4th year BA top-up year with Warwick University Early Childhood Team. Thank you for your interest, and please do not hesitate to email me with any queries that you may have. Thank you.